I loved watching the Trooping the Colour parade with the kids and Catherine in the carriage. But this moment that's gone viral, which it's a side of the Princess of Wales I don't think we've ever seen, when the Republic protesters were there and she's gone past with the children and they were booing. And the kids obviously were looking a bit confused in this footage, and it would be a bit obviously very confronting for small children. And the look she gives them, as someone captioned it, if looks could kill. We've not seen this from Catherine before, but I feel like she's just taking no prisoners at the moment. What do you think? What did you make of the footage?
Yeah, I thought good on her, frankly. I thought good for you. If people are going to be that... If you want to protest about not having a monarchy, knock yourself out. It's a free country. That's the whole point of the monarchy, is that you can protest against it, right? That's the whole point of the country that we live in. But if you're going to boo children, you're just an idiot, and just get out.
Well, as a parent, it did make me feel uncomfortable because I agree with you. We're used to seeing Republic out at royal events, particularly after the death of the late Queen. But it was with the children's reactions to it. It was almost you could see that it almost sparked that maternal rage in Catherine. But something that struck me as well watching this footage, Mark, is that Catherine's always had this quality that sort of reminds me of the late Queen, in that she's from a very young age been sort of wrapped up in the royal adjacent prior to her marriage to William. So we never knew much about her before then. And then she's obviously been dating William for a long time and then married him. So we don't ever really see very emotional expressions from her. She's very careful with all of that, with her public displays. But this was, as I say, this was a rare moment of sort of seeing her real reaction to something. Do you think it was very deliberately chosen?
I think so. Well, first, she's a human being, but I do think she's quite a stoic character. Let's not forget that when she split from from William, when he was obviously, Prince William, one of the most famous young men in the world, most eligible bachelor in the world, they had a bit of a split. She managed to absorb all of that press attention. And actually, she was in love with William. She found the temporary split, painful, but she said that's life. And then they got back together again. So I think she's quite a strong person. She's very protective of her kids. It was, yes, you should say that stare was up there with Paddington's angry stare, wasn't it? Very protective. And I think it's interesting, is going back to our earlier story, I think if it's going to be a face-off between Meghan and Catherine, because we talked about the rivalry between William and Harry, well, forget about that, because the main event is Catherine and Meghan. And I think Catherine is well up for the fight.
Do you think that we've underestimated Catherine in the past?
I think people did underestimate her. I don't think they do anymore. I think that people, especially after what she came through with the cancer diagnosis and the kind of grace with which she dealt with that, and which she dealt with all that speculation that happened at the time, I think that the days of underestimating Catherine are long gone, and I'm sure Meghan doesn't underestimate her.
And also, the other great thing about her, we mentioned, your insider said that Meghan has a thick skin,
yes.
which she does, because Thomas Markle Jr., her brother, said it's more than that. She loves to be attacked because it's all noise. But with Catherine has got a thick skin too, because there were expectations that she should reveal more about what was going on with her cancer. She actually did it on her terms, recorded that video, issued statements. She chose the timeline. Others thought, isn't it time to get back to work now? We've not seen Catherine for a long time, but she stuck to her guns, and she decided that she was going to own that cancer journey.
You're absolutely right. And interestingly then, she's always been popular, but I think her return from there, and it was a gradual return on her own timeline, but she has been never more popular and never more of an asset to the royal family. That Italian trip, particularly recently, was, a huge success for her. But going to some other breaking news, and still on the Waleses, we've found out
More breaking news. I can't cope.
Well, we know where, back on the couch, jump up and down. We know where Prince George will be going to school. He's going to go to Eton, following in the footsteps of his father and Prince Harry. So he'll be starting in September, of course. Now, many prime ministers and celebrities have gone to Eton, and our very own Tom Sykes.
Yes.
So you can tell us...
Well, he must be very intelligent, because when I went to Eton, basically you went and met the headmaster, and the headmaster said, "Hello, your grandfather went here, didn't he?" And you said, "Yes, you did, sir." And then he said, "Play cricket?" You said, "Yes, I do, sir." And they said, "Batsman or bowler?" "Batsman, sir, number 4.
So did you have a good experience there? What can George expect from
Well, I was
Eton?
actually expelled, Bronte.
So not a great experience.
That's a badge of honour.
Yeah, well, and actually it's funny, because, it's fair to say I left with mixed emotions to the place, but as time's gone on, I've realised how incredibly privileged I was to have that education. George will love it. It's really hard to get into now. It's a really academic school, so he must be really clever. And I'm told that no quarter is given for any celebrity or any member of the royal family or anything, because it just wouldn't be fair on them. They just wouldn't have a nice time.
How did Harry get in there for?
Well, you didn't in those days.
I see.
And
That was in the old
They've
regime.
tightened up the rules.
Why do you
the old
think,
regime, Mark.
when they were just letting anyone in? I'm joking. Why do you think they? I mean, there were reports they were looking at other schools. That may have just been a red herring. But why do you think they chose Eton specifically for George?
Well, the slightly odd thing about Eton is that whilst it's obviously an incredibly rarefied environment, it is actually located within a town. So there are things like shops, for example, around the place that you can go to. There is also a bar at Eton for the students that you're allowed to go to once you're over 16. But because there are shops and there's Eton High Street and Windsor, and so in a way, although it's a completely rarefied, it is actually a kind of experience of the real world. It's an ersatz real world, but there is something of the real world. And I think also, obviously, from a security point of view, there's so many VIP kids going there already that it's probably fairly easy to add one more into the park.
And I think he'll be boarding most likely.
Yeah.
And is it exclusively
That's 100%,
boarding?
yeah.
100%. So, and I think that provides continuity for him. You see military families that have their kids at boarding school so that there isn't disruption. And I think that it's an extraordinary thing to be the next king but one. And I think that the continuity of a boarding setting is great for him. Plus, as you mentioned, safety. And I think he'll have a very happy time there.
I think it's brilliant.
And
I think it's brilliant.
it's close to the family home in Windsor as well, or closer than some of the
And
other.
this
I mean,
wouldn't
you
have
can
happened.
walk.
This wouldn't have happened without Catherine's blessing. Obviously, she's his mother. And what is her big focus, which is shared by William? As normal a childhood as possible. It's so ironic that they've managed, Charlotte, Louis, and George, to give them relatively normal lives. Unlike the Sussexes, who have actually publicised their kids to a far greater extent, turning them into these mystical celebrities. But I think they've done a great job with their three, William and Catherine.
We only see them very rarely, even though they're very high-profile occasions.
You just get the official portraits on the birthday. That's about it.
And they're left alone. They have their summer holidays. They have all.
What do we hear about them? We hear nothing.
Exactly. We will move on now to Tom, a very intriguing piece from you, actually, speaking of your Substack from earlier. So Andrew, you've written, played a bit of a role of a puppet master when it came to his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie's attendance at Peter Phillips' wedding recently. Now, of course, a lot of the senior royals were there in attendance, along with Beatrice and Eugenie. There'd been a lot of discussion about whether they would go, obviously, off the back of the Epstein scandals involving their parents. Now, they have been laying low, but you've written that Andrew had he was choreographing this entrance into the wedding. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was so weird because about a week before I started to hear from people who knew them that they were really thinking twice about whether to go and indeed whether they would go to Ascot this week. Now, we don't know, but I'm told that they're going to go tomorrow. But and then it emerged that actually Andrew was basically emailed them and said to them, you've got to go, you've got to represent the family name, we're the Yorks, blah, 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 blah. And then this extraordinary thing happened at the wedding, which was that everybody else got dropped off at the church door. They got dropped off at a house in the village owned by a friend of Peter and Harriet's and walked the sort of gruesome foursome, walked down the street to the church so they could be photographed the whole time. And I don't know, you'll probably remember it, but there's this horrendous photograph of Eugenie hugging Mia Tyndall and looking at the camera to check whether she's being photographed. And it's just, this was it. It was like a very choreographed big return. And Andrew apparently ranting and raving in Marsh Farm, saying that his staff still have to call him Sir and Duke of York, and that he will continue until the last drop of royal blood is sucked from his veins.
It's a very visual statement, isn't it? I do want to talk about the titles thing in just a moment, but before we get onto that, what I find fascinating about this is there's a lot of conflicting reports about the state of the relationship between the princesses and their parents, but particularly Andrew. It was very widely reported last year that Eugenie in particular was not speaking to her father. So this sort of flips that on its head, because if they're taking advice to this level from him, it would indicate that they have a closer relationship still to this day than what we'd previously been told. Is that your understanding?
Well, I think to be fair, I think the relationship is much closer with Beatrice. And we saw Beatrice, of course, going down and taking the kid on the pony ride, you know, before the full defenestration happened. Eugenie lives in Portugal. She's done a lot more prior to this to separate herself from the family. Eugenie, I get these senses much more wants to project herself as, like, you know, pregnant Earth mother, blah, 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 blah. That's much more her vibe. But Beatrice, you know, everybody's seeing her out and about, best foot forward, you know, boom, we're back. So it's the hot princess summer.